This is a little laundry detergent pod that was just banned in New York because it has a known carcinogen called 1,4-dioxane. And this is just one of the many things inside of our home that are slowly killing us. And I'm gonna introduce you to a world that you probably didn't even know existed. And that's the world of environmental health. But in order to do that, I also need to introduce you to one of the world's leading experts. This is Ryan Blaser, and he's the founder of testmyhome.com. He goes into people's homes and tests for the 5 invisible sources of sickness that are wrecking their health without them even realizing it. Hundreds of millions of people are suffering from brain fog, fatigue, anxiety, sleep issues, and even autoimmune conditions and cancer can be linked to these 5 sources of sickness.
It can last for months. That sounds scary.
You feel like you're on the road to recovery, and then a new symptom will kick in.
A new study showing some types of cancer are on the rise in younger Americans.
Considering that most civilized humans are spending 90% of their time indoors, this is basically affecting everyone. I flew out to Ryan's house to learn about these 5 sources of sickness so we can identify them, we can remove them, and we can return our home back to being the sanctuary that it's supposed to be. But why would Ryan even start this company in the beginning? Well, just like me, he also suffered from a mold infection and didn't know it. And he was dealing with chronic health issues for many, many years. And to layer on top of that, he also got lead poisoning. Both of stuff are environmental toxins that are now resulting in chronic health issues. All right, so I just arrived at Ryan's house and I'm gonna go inside. We're gonna meet with him. We're gonna ask him about all the different silent sources of sickness. And without further ado, let's... Whoa.
Kyle,
what's up, dude? How you doing?
Come on in.
Thank you. I will name him Jeff. From my understanding, there's these like different sort of pillars or facets of someone's home that can impact them. What is the first one that people need to be concerned about?
First thing that we need to be thinking about in our home is the water quality. The water we drink, the water we bathe in has a huge impact on our overall health.
What's wrong with our water?
The majority of the water that we get out of our faucet here in the United States is not really healthy. It's loaded with a lot of heavy metals, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals.
So if water's so bad, what can we do to sort of combat that? Can you show me what you've done? Because you've built the most incredible, healthy home. You've optimized everything to the 9. So show me your system.
Yeah.
All the filters, all the things. I want to see all of it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we are actually on a well system here. So we pull the water out of the ground. It gets stored in this tank. From the tank, it runs over to the water softeners. So what the water softeners do is going to pull out the hard minerals. Next, we send it to our whole home filtration system. The whole home filter is going to pull out a good majority of the heavy metals and the contaminants and any chemicals that are in the water. So once it leaves here, this goes to the showers, the laundry room, the toilets, all the other faucets in the house. Now, the water that we drink and that we cook with, we want to do a little bit extra to that. What we do for that water is send it through a reverse osmosis system. So this reverse osmosis system is going to pull everything out of the water that's left. So once the water comes into our house for drinking and cooking, we run it through this machine here. And what this machine does is infuses hydrogen into the water, and hydrogen has a ton of health benefits. We can pull the water out from here, from this cool little touchpad. So we have hydrogen water that comes out. Now, we do a little bit extra in our home. We take the water and we structure the water. So we fill this and we send it through a vortex machine. So what that does is structures the water, it aligns all the molecules. And since this water is super, super pure, it doesn't have any minerals or contaminants in it, then we need to add some minerals back into it. So we use the Quinton minerals. We also use some of the trace minerals, and we use Redmond sea salt we can put into it. So we kind of rotate around different minerals. Now that we've gone to all that work, we have probably some of the best water you could possibly drink right here. You can tell a difference too. It feels good.
What's the poor man version of this?
I mean, the first step you want to do is install a reverse osmosis system. So deal with the water that you're actually putting into your body, the water that you're actually cooking with. For anywhere from $300 to $800, you can get a really good reverse osmosis system.
If you guys want to get more details on different products and recommendations Ryan has, we'll put a checklist down below. So I know what you're probably thinking right now. Kyle, this is a lot. It is. It really is a lot. I did everything I could to make this video as simple and succinct as possible, but when in reality, this isn't very simple and it's not very succinct. But my guarantee is if you stay with me to the end of the video, you're gonna get an immense amount of value and you're gonna cut years of trying to figure this stuff out on your own, because this is the video that I wish I would have had 5 years ago.
Right out of college with an electrical engineering degree, we were designing and building nightclubs. We were optimizing the environment to have ultimate stimulation. The colors, the lighting. I realized after a while of working in these environments environments that I'm actually sensitive to EMF. It wasn't too much long after that, I moved into a place and it had a lot of mold in it. The mold and the chemicals and then some stress I was going through really made me sick. I thought I was gonna die. I was in and out of the hospital and they thought I had stomach cancer. I couldn't keep food down. Finally realized what it was, moved out of the environment, was able to turn my health around, looking back, realizing, wow, there's a lot of people in the same boat. What can we do to really help people? And so looking into the market and seeing that there's really no other companies that do what we do, that go into the home, that do the full analysis, that treat this like a holistic problem. So we started up our company about 5 years ago, focusing primarily on people that are sick, people that have gone to several different doctors that can't figure out what's going on, that just don't feel good anymore, and going into their environment and doing the full panel, the full array of testing of anything in the home that could be causing sickness or illness, figuring out what it is, fixing it, and then watching them get better.
I feel like that's like the perfect segue to talk about the next biggest silent killer, which is mold.
There are millions and millions and millions of people right now affected by mold, and a lot of them don't even realize it. What the problem is lately is that we built these homes super airtight and they don't breathe, they don't have a chance to aerate out, and we get mold that starts to grow in the walls, in our crawl space, in our attic, in our HVAC system. Problem is these mold, they put off mycotoxins as a defense mechanism. Problem is these mycotoxins are really dangerous.
Out of all the 5 sources of sickness, mold scares me the most. The whole reason I started this channel was because I was struggling with my health, and I spent $150,000 trying to figure it out in 5 years of my life. And I finally discovered, thanks to a very talented health coach, Cliff Wild, that I was suffering from a mold infection. And I had been living in houses that were moldy for years. The scariest part is it's estimated that 70% of homes have mold issues, and therefore the occupants are suffering major health consequences. And sometimes this mold is behind the wall. It's completely invisible and you'll never even know that it's there. Ryan took me around his home to show me how can you prevent mold from actually growing and how to look out for it and identify it if you do have it. So the first thing that you can do is get leak detectors and put them anywhere in your house where there might be moisture. It could be under the sink, it could be behind the toilet. If there's a leak or moisture starts to develop, it's gonna sound the alarm.
Another place that I always check, or I have my clients check, and you can do this now, go to your toilet and look in your toilet tank. And so this place is a place where we commonly see mold. For one, it's got a lot of moisture. As you can see, there's water on it, and it's a dark, damp place. So if we have mold in the environment, when you flush the toilet, it pulls air into the tank to displace the water, and those mold spores will land on the lid and land on the exterior and start to grow. And so this is a good way to check if you think you might have a mold problem.
Next, you want to look at the walls, and is there any water damage? Are there any little black spots on the wall? Is it bubbling? Is it soft to the touch? That could be an indication that mold has gotten in there and it's started to grow. You might find this in your crawl space. You might find it in your attic. If anything feels musty or mildewy or just has a weird scent to it, then that is definitely cause for concern. And Ryan recommends that you should definitely work with an inspector to come out and do a proper investigation into your house. So the next silent source of sickness is air. The quality of the air in the house can radically impact your health. So Ryan has set up a whole home system. So he uses an HRV system to pull fresh air from the outside in and to remove stale air.
Inside here we have 2 different types of filters. This is our MERV 15 filter that we have, and then we have an electrostatic filter. And what this does is charge the particles. Pretty much once the air goes through this system here, there's nothing in the air. It captures all the particles in. So in addition to the air filtration system that we have tied into our HVAC, into our mechanical system, we have standalone units in every single room.
The standalone unit that he uses is the Jaspr Air Filter. He loves this particular air filter because of how it looks, how quiet it is. It has an automatic sensor that will turn on as a particulate load goes higher, and it's a low EMF air filter.
Where these standalone units really come into play is if we're having a dust storm outside, we're having an inversion in the wintertime, air pollution is building up in the city, or during fire season when it's smoky outside, then these things really come in handy to purify the air.
Tell me a little bit about this 4th one.
So the 4th silent source of sickness that we see in people's homes is chemical exposure. And that can come from the cleaning supplies, that can come from fragrances, that can come from pesticides. There's over 80,000 known registered chemicals in use in the United States. Only several thousand of those have actually been tested on humans. None of those have been tested in combination with each other. When it comes into our body, it reacts with our chemicals, makes a toxic soup that can be very harmful. So let's take bleach and ammonia. If you mix those 2 together, it makes chlorine flaming gas can kill you.
So what have you done to negate that in your house? Can you show us around?
As far as our cleaning products, we have a pretty simple rundown of what we do. Majority of our cleaning, we use a half mixture of distilled white vinegar and distilled water with a little bit of a lemon essential oil in there. But also a really good go-to is the Branch Basic stuff. So we really use that for a lot of stuff. They have really good dishwasher tablets. It's all fragrance-free, no phosphates, no sulfates. They do a really good job. And also they have an all-purpose cleaner for bathroom or cutting germs, viruses. We use Force of Nature, which is basically hypochlorous acid. That's primarily what we clean our house with. Very important one to go non-toxic is your laundry detergent, because it's next to your body when you're sleeping on your sheets. It's also next to your body on your clothes 24/7. Now what we use, kind of a combination between Branch Basics and Zoom laundry soap. Both of them are super non-toxic, super healthy, super clean. We also use Puracy for a stain remover. And then really, a lot of times we're putting just baking soda with a little bit of vinegar in the fabric softener. The bedding is a super important place to really focus on and spend a little time. So our bed, we have organic, non-toxic sheets. We have organic bedding. Our mattress is actually just this wool mattress. Here, I can show you. Pull back the sheets. We got a non-toxic wool topper. Mattress itself is just wool. Most traditional mattresses have flame retardants on them, so you want to get something that doesn't have flame retardants, because you don't want that soaking into your body as you're sleeping.
The fifth source of sickness, which also happens to be the most controversial.
Yes.
But from your perspective, from what I understand, it's probably one of the most important. First of all, what is it? Why is it so controversial?
So when it comes to EMF, we're actually talking about three different things. The E stands for electric fields, which is the electricity that runs through the wiring in our house, and we can measure it using this meter here. You can see as we get close to the electrical. Anything that runs off of electricity has an electric field. And so that's the E of the EMF, okay? Now the M of the EMF is the magnetic energy. Magnetic fields comes from motors, high voltage power lines, like this blender, for example, is gonna put off some magnetic field. Now we wanna be less than 0.2, 0.3, somewhere around there is ideal. Now when we turn this on, see how that jumps up pretty high? Now, the reason is because this has a magnetic motor in there that's spinning and moving the blender. F of the EMF is the fields, or I like to think of those as the frequencies. That's all of our really cool devices that we like. The Bluetooth, the cell phones, the Wi-Fi. Those we can measure with this meter here. Now, a good level that we want to have when we're awake, if we can, is less than 10. We don't want to be much over 1,000. And you can see here in the house now we're around 70, 59.
The dangers of EMF are widely debated in the scientific community, but I will link up all the studies that Ryan sent me that advocate for the dangers and risks associated. So if you want to do your own research, I will put those links down in the description below.
So the problem is that our bodies are electrical beings. Our heart, our nervous system, our brain, even our cells work on little electrical impulses that tell our bodies to move or to process food. So when we overlay these frequencies, it causes a lot of interference in the body. And so it's super critical that we assess the situation in the home and make sure that we're not overexposing ourselves to these unnatural or non-native EMF. There's probably 5,000 or 6,000 of these studies that are directly linking this stuff to cancer and neurological issues. So it's super important that people start paying attention to this.
We're living in a toxic world, and we're spending more time indoors, and the rise of technology is going to make the EMF problem even worse. So the question is, what are we supposed to do? So Ryan has hardwired his entire house, which means there's no Wi-Fi. And every time he wants to use the internet, he connects into his device directly using an Ethernet cord. And he even does this with his phone that has a little converter. He emphasized to me how important this is to do in places where we spend a lot of time. So i.e. the office or the bedroom. He spends a lot of time in his office. So while he's working, he's plugged in and he has his phone on airplane mode. And he uses Google Voice so he can still use his phone and take calls. So he doesn't have to be exposing himself to unnecessary EMF. He does the same thing with his laptop. And then what he showed me next as a sleep guy was really epic.
Okay, so another thing that we have in our house and for the sleeping area is the kill switch. The EMF kill switch is something we talk about in the inspection. So we have the switch installed. It's a little key fob. And you see when I hit this button, see how it powers down the whole side of the house. So not only this room, the circuits, the air filters, but the bathroom, and I have bathroom behind this wall. Everything gets shut down on this side of the house. So we have zero EMF field when we sleep. Now, for the kids' side of the house, we have something similar, except for it's not a switch, it's on a timer. So that 9 o'clock at night, it goes off every night automatically. And that's to give them the opportunity to sleep in a zero EMF field as well.
Ryan told me that safe levels are around 10. Here's what happened when he turned on his phone and his laptop.
14, 20. Now if I go ahead and activate my phone, see how it jumps up to 400,000. So with just my phone sitting next to me, we went from 20 to 400,000. You get online and my exposure is 22, 24, pretty low. Turn on Wi-Fi here, 400,000. If I'm sitting here for 8 hours a day, I got my cell phone right here, I got my laptop right here, I'm getting 400,000 from this, I'm getting 400,000 from that. Now let's say if I had my Wi-Fi router over in the corner and I had a wireless printer right behind me, that's 4 high-powered devices that I'm blasting my body with.
And as I was spending more time with Ryan, I was becoming increasingly more stressed about all the things that I have to think about. So I decided to ask him this. You fly all the time, you're always traveling. You're living like a normal life, doing normal things. How do you reconcile that?
We spend almost 90% of our times indoors, either at work or home or in a car. I know that 90% of the time that I'm spending in my house is healthy, so that when I go out into the environment and expose myself to toxins and EMF and chemicals and harsh lighting, that my body can withstand it. If I was to completely be in a toxic-free environment with perfect air, no chemicals, perfect water, no EMF, then my body would start to desensitize. And once I did go out into the real world, then I would be really affected from it because my body wouldn't be able to withstand it. So I think it's important to go out and get little bits of EMF and get a little bit of this exposure, because that's what's going to keep our body strong and working. It's called hermetic stress. It's the same principle when we go to the gym and work out a muscle. We go out and we work our biceps and we curl and we do a set until it's fatigued, and then we let it rest for a couple days. And that's the critical part that a lot of people aren't integrating, is they're not getting a break from the toxins. And that's where it becomes a problem.
We've covered so much stuff. I imagine people could feel overwhelmed, especially if they're dealing with like health stuff, right? What advice would you give to someone who's just like come across this video, maybe they're struggling with one issue or another?
From where I came to where I am now was an absolute journey. It did take time, it did take money, but I'll tell you what, it was worth it. I feel so much better, I can think clear. My life just in general is so much better because I've implemented these things into my lifestyle, and that's why we've created this business, to be able to help people.
Here's the beautiful thing that I realized. A lot of these things are systems that once you set them up, you don't have to think about them too much. There might be a little bit of maintenance, but it's something you kind of do once, and then it starts to work for you. And once you have these things in your home, it does most of the heavy lifting for you. Just like your body, you have to test. Once you test, then you diagnose. Once you diagnose, then you prescribe a protocol so that your home can be as healthy as possible. If you're interested in getting your home tested, then I'll put a link down below where you can also get the free checklist that's going to walk you through everything that you need to know to make sure that your home is as healthy as possible. The home is supposed to be a sanctuary. It's supposed to be the place where you feel most safe. So let's do everything we can to restore health to our homes. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, be well.